So for all of you that put some effort into getting here on time, why don't we start the meeting on time so hopefully we can finish on time. I'm just going to hand the meeting right over to our Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Sean Keith. Take it away.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for showing up tonight. I know this is a, it's a school week, middle of school week, middle of the work week. Short notice, but where's Jim? I don't want to offend anyone, but it takes quite a bit of time to get anything done with this county, so it took around 10 days to just get this building available. I thank you for all coming tonight. Obviously, with this showing, it shows that this is an important topic on a lot of people's minds. You know, on the sign-in sheet, I put something about if you're a current Ashford Park student parent or not. I see a lot of no's up there, so that means there's a lot of people in the community that don't have children at Ashford Park right now that are very involved, want to be involved, want to know what's going on, and want to partake in what's going on in our community. But the purpose of this meeting tonight is just to get a lot of information out there to parents, teachers, school leadership in the community about what our options are for our local elementary school. A little background of myself, I have two kids at Ashford Park right now. I have a kindergartner and a third grader, and then I have two that have yet to start. One of them is with Beverly at OPP, and then we have a 17-month-old. So I did the math earlier. We'll have someone at Ashford Park until probably 2024. My family is very vested in our school and the community, and we want to see the school be as strong as possible. I've invited some special guests here tonight to talk, and what we're going to do is let them all give a brief introduction and a little background of what they do and what their roles are in these topics, and then just talk about. Nancy's going to talk about hopefully the state of education in DeKalb in Georgia. We got Gil Hearn here. His kids go to Kingsley Charter up in Dunwoody, which is a conversion charter school. So everyone has a little topic they're going to talk about, and then we're going to open it up to questions and answers, because I'm sure that there's a lot of them out there. But just quickly, I'm going to go down this. Just Nancy Jester, who most of you probably know. Can I say past DeKalb? Sure. I guess it's still up in the air. Okay. She was a DeKalb County Board of Education member. She is this is a personal opinion. She's a friend of us as parents and taxpayers in DeKalb County, Georgia. So thank you, Nancy, for being here. And then we have Andrew Lewis, who is the Executive Vice President of the Georgia Charter Schools Association. We have Gil Hearn. Like I said, he is a parent up at Kingsley Charter School in Dunwoody. He is the secretary on the Charter Council at Kingsley. Beverly Moon, she is a past Ashford Park parent. She's current director at Oglethorpe Presbyterian. Very active in Chamblee Charter High School. The vice chair of the council. Okay. And then Glenn Delk. Glenn is an attorney who spent 30 years in education reform topics in Georgia. He's very active in a lot of, he's represented parents in school choice issues, represented charter schools, represented Board of Education members, very involved in the education movement in Georgia. And then we're going to have two other guests who aren't here yet, but I'm going to have Nancy start.
I'll stand up that way, I'm short so everybody can see me. Thanks for coming out. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. And also I have to say I'm working with Andrew now as a consultant for Georgia Charter Schools Association, so I'm really excited. It's a perfect fit for us because my perspective is always about parents' rights, autonomy for schools, and what's in the best interest of kids and taxpayers. So can everybody hear me back there? Okay. So just briefly, and I'll take a little bit of interaction with you to just sort of guide my talk. I know we're going to have Q&A later, but to talk about education from the state perspective and the county perspective is a big topic. So if you have questions, just raise your hand. So DeKalb's the third largest district in the state. You got DeKalb and then DeKalb, so roughly 98,000 students. The budget, I just took a look at the latest budget numbers. The budget that we're operating under this fiscal year, we go from a 7-1 to 630 fiscal year. So it's really important to pay attention right now, because right now the budget is being developed for DeKalb County. So it will kick in on July 1st, and the budget hearings are coming up. So I would just advise you to pay attention, because follow the money. Make sure it's going to the items that you think are appropriate. I only had 2 filters when I served on the board. Is it in the best interest of kids and taxpayers? If not, you know, I didn't vote for it. So that, and if your new board members do that, then they will stay focused and make the right decisions. So the one thing that troubles me right now, as I looked at the latest numbers through February, is the most current data. You've got about a $732 million budget. About 77% of it has been spent as of February. So you had, but yet you have a third of the year left to go. So that's a little off. Hopefully they're you know, clipping what their burn rate at which they're burning their cash. So we'll know more next month about that. But watch them really carefully right now. They're going to have to make cuts, they're saying. One of the things I could never understand was the bloat that we do see from an administrative standpoint. You would ask and ask and ask for data on that, and you could never really get them to give you the cuts that they made. So I just started following the money, and if you look at the general administration expenses on salaries, that's the central office essentially, over the last 6 years, that's up 14.4%, while instructional salaries and other salaries are down 25%. So if they cut people, the money doesn't reflect that. So keep an eye on that. I'll certainly be blogging about that and talking about that as I see the new budget. Can you hear me back? It's still hard. I'm sorry. So every year, and one of the fallacies they'll tell you, this comes in the statement here, is that they keep cutting education funding. Well, that's really not true, okay? They spend more money than ever on education, even on a per pupil basis, but it's not making it to the classroom. That's one of the reasons why I really support autonomy for school communities. If I was queen for a day in DeKalb, I would make every school independent. I would give you your block grant of money and say, let's enter into a contract, and you run your school, you hire people, you guys decide what you get paid, and you pick your principal and your staff. I think that when we have that level of autonomy in our schools, will improve education for all of the children. So what we have right now, I always tell people we don't have an education system in Georgia. We have an employment agency and a construction firm that call itself, they call themselves an education district. And that's not just true for DeKalb, that's true across the state. So, and that's not to minimize the good work that teachers do every day in the classroom, but their successes are despite the mistakes, not because of the help they get from them. So I'm really excited to be here tonight, and I'll take any questions you have about DeKalb, the state of where we are. Keep in mind, before I sit down, this is the time, me too, yeah. So this is the time that, that I guess 2 years ago now, or maybe it was a year, that the board brought up the cell tower issue. Remember the cell tower issue? Now, I voted against that. I often lost votes, so, but this was the time when it came up, and people weren't paying attention. They didn't go to those meetings, and the net outcome was that then it was ended up being voted on in the summertime. So pay attention right now. Tell everybody to pay attention right now. Be emailing people, email administrators, email your board, and let them know what your priorities are. It's very important. So that's what's going on right now in DeKalb and the state. Any questions that I can answer? And I know we'll have Q&A at the end, so. All right, I'll sit down. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Nancy brought up a topic that I think is very important, a group of people that's very important to our community, and that's our teachers. Are there teachers here? I see a couple. Can you raise your hands, teachers? this effort of ours to try to make some change, a lot of it revolves around our teachers and our school leadership. And thank you for coming and thank you for participating. This is very important. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrew Lewis, Executive Vice President of the Georgia Charter Schools Association. And he's going to talk about what a charter is.
Good evening. Thank you all so very much for being here this evening. To try to, before delving into what is a charter school, I think it's important for me to be able to provide a little context of why I am in the charter sector, the ed reform movement. I am a lifelong resident of Atlanta. I grew up 2 or 3 miles away from here. My wife and I live in DeKalb, in the city of Decatur. I'm a product of Woodward Academy. Very fortunate that my parents had the ability to send me to Woodward. My wife and I are not able to afford that luxury. For me, after about 9 years of being in the business world, I transitioned into education because I felt like I wanted to make our community of Atlanta a better place. Started out as a substitute teacher, a full-time parapro in city schools of Decatur, where I thought I saw everything that was right about public education. And then the following year, after getting certified, full-time teacher, Stone Mountain Middle School, DeKalb County, where I saw the flip side. And I saw children that are on a pathway to being something that we do not want within our communities, and that is a child that does not have a path. And that's where I got inspired that the ed reform movement is something that is important for many communities for many different reasons. So ultimately led me to Georgia Charter Schools Association. I've been with the association for 8 years. The association, we do 2 things. One, we are an advocacy membership organization, so we advocate on behalf of charter schools across the state, working for a stronger policy for a better environment for charter schools. And we work with founding groups and existing charter schools to assist them, whether that is governance training or founding a charter school, assisting them to have the school that they want to fit the community that they're serving. On the table, I have provided a lot of information that I see a lot of you have picked up. Just very quickly, a sheet on charter flexibility, what it means to have flexibility under the law as a charter school, conversion charter school model in Georgia, an overview, and some of the pluses and minuses about the current system of being a conversion charter school. And then a couple of policy briefs talking about governance within a charter school and autonomy within a charter school. But for those of you that have this, the best description of a charter school are the 2 graphs in the center. At the bottom you see what should be a very simple formula. Flexibility plus autonomy plus accountability equals student achievement. The idea of a charter school is very, very simple. That a charter is supposed to be provided autonomy. And that autonomy is through a governing board that oversees the operations, the mission, the vision of the school. It is the oversight body of the charter. The governing board is supposed to be able to make decisions in the best interest of the school and the school community. The governing board is supposed to be able to handle certain areas like the hiring and firing of staff. Budgets. Things like seat time. Should the school follow a year-round calendar? What type of program should the school have? Should it be an international baccalaureate program? Should it be a constructivist program? But it is the board and the leadership in the school and the parents that are driving what is the best fit for a model for our community. The second, flexibility. Charter schools are supposed to be provided a blanket waiver of education law here in Georgia. That is Title 20 of education law. While charter schools are supposed to be provided that, in practice, and I hope some of my colleagues in conversion charter schools here in Georgia may agree that what is in the law may not always be in practice. And that is an area that I think conversion schools in DeKalb and Fulton and elsewhere need to be provided. And that is full flexibility and autonomy under the law to be able to make decisions that are in the best interest of the individual school that they are serving. So we have flexibility, autonomy, but that comes with accountability. For an independent charter school, right up the street from here, we have a charter school that is serving right around the corner from Oglethorpe. They are an independent charter, meaning accountability for them, if they're not living up to their obligation, they run the risk of closure. For a conversion charter school, that accountability is different. It is because because a school would be a conversion charter school, they're not running the risk of being shut down, but they are running the risk of losing their individual charter. So all of that is supposed to help push student achievement. At the end of the day, it all boils down to, are our children in our individual schools receiving everything that they could possibly receive to achieve at the levels that we know our children are capable of achieving? Are we empowering principals and teachers to the levels that they should be empowered in the classroom, in the school, to be able to do the work that is necessary for our children? Where charter schools have done wonderful work, we have seen tremendous results. But I also want to say, where there are charters that have not lived up to their responsibilities, whether that is through educational outcomes or governance, no, they have not achieved the level that they should. So I say that in the idea, a charter school is not a silver bullet for education reform, but it is another tool in a tool belt that needs more tools. Some tools need to be thrown out, other tools need to be resharpened. But it is a tool that many communities right now in 48 states are utilizing, and would be thrilled to continue a conversation with anybody here in the room on what may be right or not for this community.
Thank you, Andrew. The next speaker is Glenn Delk. As I said earlier, Glenn is an attorney here in Atlanta who's had a lot of experience in all spectrums of education reform. And Glenn's going to talk about what I consider a public-private, private-public partnership concept. So Glenn?
Thank you, Sean. As Sean said, I have been involved in the school
reform the school choice area for quite a while. Most recently, I represented Nancy in the DeKalb County litigation. Prior to that, I represented the taxpayers in the litigation around the charter amendment, where Superintendent Barge and the school districts were using tax dollars to lobby against the charter amendment. And finally, I also represented the majority of the Atlanta board members who voted to have a full-fledged investigation of the cheating scandal that resulted in litigation. I'm here to talk to you about an alternative to charters. I believe in charters. I believe in parental choice and freedom of choice for the teachers and the school leaders. Just to give you a little perspective, Georgia spends annually about $16 billion on your K through 12 system to educate 1.6 million students. The official graduation rate is expected to be around 68%. You will see the state and your local districts tell you that on the state CRCT test scores, our students are 90% are performing at proficient levels. Well, in reality, those districts are shortly going to have to face reality because the Common Core tests are coming out. In reality, on the NAEP test, the national test, Georgia's proficiency rate for all students is around 25%, and for minority students it's around 12%. That's the nationally based test. We are also, compared to the rest of the world, not doing quite as well, especially in the area of science, technology, engineering, and math. According to the ACT and the SAT, only 20% of our graduates from high school are college ready without needing remediation. So my point of that is not to condemn the system, but simply to say we're not doing a very good job of preparing the children for a 21st century economy. And one of the reasons that Sean asked me to speak is that I've been working for the last 18 months on an effort that's a public-private partnership to bring a charter model to Atlanta. It's called High Tech High. It's out of San Diego. It started 12 years ago. They started with 200 students in high school. It was started by a group of business leaders and philanthropists who were concerned, just as you are, about the future of the city. And from 200 students in high school, they now have 4,500 students, K through 12. They have, last year, they had 8,800 applicants for 400 spots. After a few years, Larry Rosenstock, the founder, who's a friend of mine, he decided he needed to start his own graduate school of education, and he did so, and now they train their own teachers and school leaders. They have 1,500 teachers apply out for 50 spots each year. As a result of their efforts, on $7,200 of operating costs, they graduate over 90% of their entering ninth graders. 100% are college ready without needing remediation, compared to Georgia's 20%. And 75% within 6 years of graduating either have a college degree or are still in college. Now, what we're trying to do is a hybrid between a district-run school and a charter. And the reason for that is simple. At the time that we started this effort, we didn't have the charter school amendment that Ben Vinson's going to talk about. So you could only get approved by a local district. And the local districts were turning everybody down, and I think will continue to turn most folks down. So we tried to come up with an alternative, and we call this a public-private partnership. Under this arrangement, we've proposed, and we have a proposal in front of the City of Atlanta right now, we've proposed a contract arrangement where the local board would turn over the management and operation of a particular school to a group led by the parents and the teachers. And in turn, that school would get complete autonomy, as Andrew said, to operate the school. In our case, we would bring in High Tech High to train the teachers and the school leaders and implement a STEM curriculum. This would start out as an elementary school, K through 5, and then would grow to a K-8 school, and ultimately a high school like the high-tech high model. The district agrees to give you a flat per pupil number, and also, and this is one of the more important reasons to do it this way, to lease the existing facility to you for $1 a year. In exchange, we agree to raise any capital necessary to expand the school and construct any addition, and to pay for the professional development. The reason the facility issue is important is because if you were to get Ashford Park to be a state charter, you would not get the facility, and right now I think the funding for a state authorized charter is roughly $6,800. That's not enough to operate the school on and pay for facilities. But by having a facility with 500 students or thereabouts, leased at $1, you can succeed financially, and you can also build an expansion. Now, what does all this mean for you guys? You have a couple of options. You can keep things going just as you are with the DeKalb County School Board. I will tell you that in my personal opinion, I don't believe politically elected school boards work now if they ever work, and they're not going to work in the future because it's one size that fits all. You have anywhere from 5 to 9 people who are elected who have their own agendas, and it's not always about the academic performance of your kids. You can convert to a charter, but as Andrew said, most conversion charters don't have nearly the autonomy that they need. You can apply to become a full-blown charter. In all likelihood, you would get turned down by the district, and then you could appeal and become a state commission charter, but then you've got the problem of the finances. And so we believe our option offers an alternative that can also serve as a win-win for the school district. And in your case, what the difference it makes is this. If you go to the state DOE website and you look at how much DeKalb County claims to be spending at Ashford Park, it is roughly $7,094 per pupil, or $3.2 million. DeKalb on average spends $9,300 per pupil. So if you were getting the full $9,300 that DeKalb claims to be spending, Ashford Park would see an additional $1 million of revenue a year. You work the numbers out, that's about a 35 on $3 million. $1 million is roughly a 35% overhead charge. That's what you're paying for by being part of the district. Under our proposal, you would get something just shy of the $9,300. You would hire your school leader, who in turn would hire the teachers, and they would decide who to hire and fire, how much to pay them, and turn over the operation of the school to the educators. One of the major reasons that I'm working with High Tech High is because they're one of the few organizations that I've seen that I believe have figured out a way to make teaching truly a profession. As a lawyer, we're self-regulated. The state bar tells us whether or not we're complying with the rules. You don't have that in teaching. In teaching, you have the state school superintendent, you have the governor, you have the politicians, you have the bureaucrats who tell you how to work, where to work, how much you get paid, etc. I think that has to change, and we think the public-private partnership offers a major step forward. I don't believe realistically that this DeKalb School Board is going to agree to voluntarily to allow entire clusters, that is, elementary through high school, to form. I may be wrong. My advice to Sean and to Bates Madison was to start small with Ashford Park and grow it, and I think you'd have a better chance of succeeding. And I'll stay around and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Glenn. Our next speaker, I didn't introduce him earlier, but Ben Vinson. Ben is an attorney with the McKenna Long firm here in Atlanta in their government affairs practice. Ben's name probably rings a bell. Ben was appointed by Governor Deal to be the chairman of the commission for the city of Brookhaven. He frequently talks and speaks about school choice topics. And I've asked him to come here and talk about the charter amendment vote from last year and what that means, not only policy-wise, but just the big numbers for it and what that shows that the communities around the state want with regards to education. So, Ben?
Sure. Thanks, Sean. It was a pleasure to work with Sean on the commission for Brookhaven, and I met several people in the room here, so it's good to see faces again. State Representative Mike Jacobs is here. Good to see you, Mike. And I'll reference Mike here in a second because, yeah, I'm a lawyer and a lobbyist with McKenna Long. I represent Andrew. I represent the Georgia Charter Schools Association. That's my client. That's the avenue that I've used to do a lot of work over the last few years in the charter school arena. And the story there is basically Andrew and I have caused a lot of turmoil over the last couple of years. That might be why you've heard of charter schools for the very first time. We certainly brought a few issues to Mike at the General Assembly to vote on. We appreciate his votes more than once. So about 5 years ago, we passed a law, and the intent of the law was, as you heard here today, about different types of charter schools. As Glenn talked about different options, Andrew talked about different options. We tried to create, there was a monopoly that existed. That's the bottom line. The reason we eventually had to pass an amendment to the Georgia Constitution is a monopoly that existed with the local school district. And if you wanted to be a charter school, you had to go to the district. And if you went to the state, you only got about half the funding. So we passed a law in 2008 that was going to allow a state commission to be created that could approve charter schools the same way that local district could. And we figured out a way, which I thought was very constitutional, to give them the full amount of funding. I ended up having to litigate a case all the way to the Georgia Supreme Court. We won at the trial court level, and then we lost in front of the Georgia Supreme Court 4-3 decision. And the Georgia Supreme Court said, if you want to do this, you got to go amend the Constitution first. So what did we do? We just said, all right, let's go amend the Constitution. So Angie and I were very involved in a big effort at the General Assembly, which required a 2/3 vote in the House and a 2/3 vote in the Senate, and then put the question on the ballot last November 6th for the general election. I mean, Glenn and Nancy and Rich certainly very active in a coalition that we put together. So I think that's a quick little overview of what the state amendment was, how it came about. The important takeaways are, I mean, a true coalition formed to try to pass this amendment. And what you saw was a lot of education about charter schools, a lot of education about other options for school choice. So it was broader in scope than just the narrow legal issue that we lost in front of the Georgia Supreme Court and had to go ask the people to ratify as part of the Constitution with the amendment. So the net result was a protracted month after month campaign, a lot of communication, a lot of mass media, a lot of campaign activity. We essentially formed a professional campaign to try to pass the amendment. Led up to a lot of back and forth with districts and superintendents and essentially the groups that did not want this amendment to pass. 58.5% of voters in Georgia ratified the amendment. It was of course, it was just a yes/no vote on the ballot. So it was 58.5% voted yes. In the 21 most populous counties in the state of Georgia, it passed every single one of them. Here in DeKalb, it was 64% passage. In Clayton County, where a few years ago was the first time we heard kind of major problems with a large metro school system, it passed by 70%. So the takeaway is that the people spoke in November. And they want charter schools, they want other types of school choice, they want options, they want changes with public education in Georgia, they want changes with the way school districts have done business for a long time. So I think the new commission that was created because of the amendment is active. It kicked off a couple of months ago. They had a meeting today, in fact. They have already approved, I guess it's 15 schools total. So you'll have something like, what is it? I think it's 16,000 students that are going to be a part of those schools. So that's one option that you'll see because of the amendment. But I think the net result for a group like this, if you're looking at a conversion charter status for Ashford Park, is there was a very public vote that occurred. And as you talk to policymakers about making changes and decide what to do, I mean, there is a track record, there is something to look at, and it's going to be used, and it's going to be looked at by policymakers when they're trying to decide what to do. And the people spoke in November, and it was a gunshot that was definitely heard all around Georgia and actually all around the nation. We were watched for what happened, and everyone's been paying attention since then. So it's exciting. It's a good time for school choice in Georgia, and we look forward to making more progress going forward. Thanks, John.
And just a little information. Ben lives in Brookhaven Fields, so he is, technically an Ashford Park School parent potentially.
That's right. I totally forgot to mention that. My wife, little baby girl, we live about a mile away.
So, is Mike here? Mike, anything you want to talk about from recent
So I don't know that I have a whole lot to add to our panel of experts up here, but other than to say, I mean, look, I think it's great that we are all here tonight. Ashford Park, I think, is an outstanding candidate for a conversion charter school. You, as a community, I think, can really do a lot to take control of the school and achieve some very outstanding outcomes for the Ashford Park School as a conversion charter. So I certainly commend that process to you. Now, it's not going to be an easy process. The constitutional amendment that Ben, and I'm sorry, I probably should have started off with an introduction.
Sorry.
I am Mike Jacobs. I represent the 80th House District, which in this neck of the woods is North Thompson Road, everything to the west of North Thompson, so I have about a third of the Ashford Park neighborhood. And then I represent all of Brookhaven Fields. I don't represent the other 2/3 of Ashford Park or Drew Valley, those two neighborhoods. The rest of Ashford Park and all of Drew Valley are in Representative Scott Holcomb's district. I'll say that the amendment we passed was not, it was a very important step in the right direction. It was not everything that I wanted as an individual legislator, because we had to, in order to get the 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate that is required to pass a constitutional amendment and put it on the ballot, make a very big concession, and that is that if you apply to your local school board with, to get a conversion charter, and they turn you down, and then you have to apply to the state charter schools commission in order to get approval, you don't get the benefit of the local tax dollars. You do get, the state funding and federal funding that goes along with your school, but you don't get the benefit of the local county tax dollars as a result of taking the appeal. That unfortunately was a concession that was made in the legislative process, and it was simply a function of not being able to cross the bar of getting 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate to vote for it until we added that particular provision in. I certainly supported something stronger, and that was allowing local parents to take control of their local schools and move the ball forward as a local community. Now, you've got, so in order to control the whole pie, you're going to have to interact with, the new guard at the DeKalb County school system. I will say that they've done something recently that gives me some pause for concern about, whether you might need to take that next step to the State Charter School Commission. And that is, up in Dunwoody, they scraped together some funds basically there's a couple, and Nancy has also talked publicly about this, I should mention, Nancy Jester, our outstanding former school board member from this neck of the woods. Some folks up in Dunwoody Scrape, there's a couple of different methods of accreditation, or a couple of different accrediting agencies, okay? There's SACS, but there is another one. And some folks up in Dunwoody scraped together the funds to allow the Dunwoody High School to be accredited by the other agency. So it's kind of a backstop against losing accreditation in the school district as a whole. Took that idea to Michael Thurman, and they basically have been met with a long litany of questions and some serious doubt as to whether the school board is going to, whether the school system is going to allow them to pursue that. Now, of course, when something like that happens, it always comes back to the state. And I can tell you that in talking with Nancy, I am absolutely going to pursue legislation that says, in the next legislative session, that if you are able to pull together the funds to pay for accreditation for a local high school, and you want to go through that process with an agency other than the main agency that accredits the entire school system, SACS, then you should be able to do that without having to, you know, you pull together the funds, you want to do it, let them do it. But you can see what that that questioning by the school board and probably standing in the way of that alternative accrediting process probably spells for the disposition of this current school. I hope I'm wrong about this. I mean, I hope that the new superintendent and the new school board will meet a charter application from the Ashford Park School with open arms and help you reach that goal. But if they're not willing to do it, you do have some other tools in the toolbox by way of the constitutional amendment and the charter and the State Charter Schools Commission. It does have some drawbacks to it because it doesn't carry quite the level of funding that having it approved locally does. So I want to make you mindful of that. And then I mentioned the other thing about accreditation, which we're going to deal with at the state level in the next legislative session. I mentioned the other piece about accreditation just to give you a window into where this new school board and administration, meet the new boss, same as the old boss, might be. So I mentioned all of that just to kind of give you a feel for what the lay of the land is. But as far as I am concerned, I fully support your effort to move forward with a conversion charter school for Ashford Park Elementary. I think it would be an outstanding move for this school in particular. I think it certainly strengthens the entire, I mean, I'm a Montgomery Elementary parent. I think it strengthens the entire, it has the effect of strengthening the entire cluster. By moving forward with some good measures for Ashford Park Elementary. So I'll be there for you every step of the way. To the extent that I can be of assistance, I certainly will. And I certainly commend you on this effort. I think it's very important for our community. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Michael. Just quickly, we acknowledge the teachers in the room. I see our fearless leader in the back corner. Dr. McMillan is back there. For those that don't know, this is her first year at Ashford Park, and it's been a pleasure having her lead our school. And also, just quickly, we have some leaders from not only Brookhaven, but also from Chamblee in the room. Two fathers, and we got Bates, father at Ashford Park, and also a city council member in Brookhaven. Tom Hogan, he's a father at Ashford Park, two daughters at Ashford Park, right? And city council member in Chamblee. And then Jim Hare back there, he is a city council member in Brookhaven, and he's the watchman over the school over there. So thank you all for being here. But that just shows, you know, not only do we have parents that are in these roles in the local community, but it just shows I think the support that our school gets from both Brookhaven and Chamblee. The next speaker, we have something in Ashford Park called the Rad Dads. Carl Myers leads the Rad Dads, and what that is a group of fathers who get together and do things around the school. Well, this gentleman right here, Rich Thompson, I consider super rad dad. Rich, and please speak about this, but Rich formed a group called 100 Dads. I look at it as an advocacy group to get fathers involved in their schools, and not just in cleanup days, but actually involved, actively involved in the classroom, and even some curriculum items. But I've asked Rich to come here tonight to speak about the importance of parental involvement at not just a charter school, but any school. And I think that we're lucky at Ashford Park to have a lot of very involved parents. But if we were to do something and move down a certain path, I think that it becomes all the more important. So, Rich Thompson.
Well, thanks, Sean. I appreciate it. I'd like to start off by saying, first of all, I commend you in your efforts. I'd love to be a part of saying that I was responsible for this call to action, but I can't take credit for that. But you yourself have decided that you want to make sure that the culture of high expectation remains strong and vibrant in this community. And that is the first step to being a viable, very respectable parent advocacy organization. Like Sean said, about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, I got kind of fed up with the status quo, and I started an organization called 100 Dads, which was basically driven toward taking dads out of the mantra of being the helpers around the school and actually leading some of the public policy to help make schools better for our kids. So dads, I'll be talking to you a little bit directly tonight, but I'm talking to moms too. There's basically 3 reasons why anybody should want to start a charter school. The first being is academic rigor. You want your kids to exceed at a much higher level. You want to be pushed just a little bit further. The second, I think, is fiscal accountability. Parents, the way I define parents is taxpayers with children. So as taxpayers, I think we owe it to ourselves to make sure we maximize every dollar that we have invested in our state so that our kids can be the best citizens possible. And we can't do that if we have school boards and statewide organizations that are not using our dollars to the best of their ability to help educate our kids. The third and final reason, most important for me, is actual parental control, paternal governance. Now, we've talked a lot about different models. There's the conversion model, there's the all-out independent model. I'll tell you, it really doesn't matter which one you choose. My personal take is, I just want to make sure that parents at the end of the day have the final say-so. If you create a system whereby all you do is change the name on the building, and you feel real good about yourself, and you pat yourself on the back, but you don't make any decisions at the end of the day, you have just had an exercise in futility. I want to make sure that I leave you with the message that I fight for and have fought for the last 10 years, is to make sure that parents always have the final say-so when you make a decision regarding the budget, academics, curriculum activity, extracurricular activities, the whole nine. Because it's the vision of the school that should be your responsibility. There's 2 different avenues of approach. There's parent-driven schools, and we have lots of those in the city, lots of those in the state. Parent-driven schools are those whereby you have super-duper engaged PTAs or parent PTOs. You have parent advocacy groups that they raise money, they have donut sales, they have bake sales, they have all these different activities. Parents are there, but they don't make any decisions. So there's parent-driven, and then there's parent-led. I have sent my daughters to 2 public charter schools in APS for the last 4 years because they offer a combination of that parent-driven and parent-led environment. That's important to me. Parent-led means you want to have a charter school where parents are going to be on the board of that school. Whether or not you're the majority or not, that's something you work out when you do your charter. But you want to make sure in whatever document is created, whether it's a public-private partnership that the one Glenn mentioned, or an all-right-out conversion or independent school, you want to make sure that there is a representative body of parents that are making decisions on that governing board. And one thing I want to leave you with in closing is, don't let the bureaucracy turn you away. One of the driving forces behind 100 Dads is to promote responsible fatherhood through civic engagement. And sometimes civic engagement means holding friends and legislators like my good friend Mike Jacobs here accountable, as well as school board members, for those of you who may be in the room, city council members and the like. That's our job, folks. That's what parents do. We have a promise to fulfill, at least in my family we do. And the promise to fulfill is to make sure that the future is a little bit brighter for the next generation. We don't get there by doing the same old thing the same old way. 180 different school districts. Doing it the same old way, getting the same old results, is not how we fix it. I believe local control is at the lowest possible level. And it's not a boardroom table, it's a kitchen table. All right? So I leave you with this. Now I have my own little test, you have yours for your family. Everybody puts a lot at stake in the CRCT. I say great, yeah, high stakes test, we need to make sure we do well. But in my house, the CRCT is just one of many tests. The test that matters the most is the TK-TC. The Thompson kitchen table test. So you got to figure out for you, which test is it that's going to matter the most for you and your family? Is it going to be the one that's superimposed by a board, be it the state board, be it the district board, be it the school board, or be it just a regular old kitchen table? Kitchen table politics is where it all gets started. Kitchen table policy is where it all gets started. And I want to make sure that we make sure that we as a parent body keep kitchen table politics live and well in this environment and across the state. Because that's how we're going to make the difference, folks. Thanks.
Thanks, Rich. Our next speaker is going to be Beverly Moon. I spoke earlier that Beverly is, she was a Ashford Park School parent, but now she's very, very active at Chamblee Charter High School. And there was a recent great news about Chamblee Charter, number 5 in the state and up there on the national rankings. But I've asked her to talk a little about the charter at the high school level and also about the STEAM program.
Good evening, everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces. I've been in the community for about 20 years, hard to believe. My children were 9 years at Ashford Park. We've been at Kittredge. We've also been at Chamblee Middle, and now we're at Chamblee Charter High School. Chamblee has been a charter school since the year 2000, and we're up for revision for 2014. We're currently going through a charter rewrite right now. We invite all of you to come to charter rewrite meetings because this is going to affect your children starting from 4th grade up. And that charter is going to be in effect at the time that your children are at the high school. So we want feedback from the community, and it's very important that you are familiar with these charter rewrite meetings. You mentioned rigor. Chamblee Charter, initially their charter was all about math and advanced placement math and then the 7-period day. That the charter right now is all about a 7-period day in advanced math. What we're looking to do for the new charter, the rewrite of the charter, is to bring in STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. Now, we had a meeting to discuss STEM, and in that meeting, we entertained the idea of the arts. And we don't want to leave the art component out of our STEM programs. It's very important, right brain, left brain, for arts to be there, but it also tends to excel students in math and science. It would also allow us to keep the arts in our schools. So we've decided, especially with the children that we have in our community, your children in band, orchestra, chorus, visual arts, can continue to go, can get actually an art pathway in the high school with this STEAM program and some certification on their diploma to state so. I had a handout that was up at the top or at the table at the front And I'm happy to email this to parents who have provided their email. It gives a little bit of information, frequently asked questions about STEAM. And it also shows the pathways that from 9th through 12th grade, what your students could opt in to take and be STEM certified when they do graduate. So we have a lot of these classes already in place at the high school, and we want to add more as this continues to unfold. Again, it was something that the community wanted to have, adding the arts into the program. There is a lot of work that goes into a charter rewrite, in addition to just a charter conversion school. So given that Ashford Park chooses to be charter, I would, you really need to think about the work that does go behind it and the community. Now, after being at Ashford Park for so many years, I know this community well, and I know you guys have the people behind it, and I know you could do it. I think it's a great option. You're talking about Race to the Top funds with STEM right now. There are funds out there currently for STEM certified schools that you need to be aware of. Currently, you have a couple of elementary schools locally. Henderson Hill Elementary, I would look at them and look at their model. Also, Hightower Elementary is also a STEM school. Henderson Mill is STEM certified. Once you become certified, you get a lot more funds, corporate funds start coming into your school. So you want to consider certification as soon as possible too. Their Race to the Top money, it's all about starting at the bottom and coming to the top. There are 16 elementaries and 9 middle schools that they have identified right now for funds. And there's going to be another Race to the Top starting at the bottom for STEM, another cohort of schools that they'll be interested in. Ashford Park, you could possibly be one of them if you go this route. So consider that as you're thinking about STEM certification and becoming a charter conversion school. When you talk about autonomy and flexibility, yes, I agree. We need more autonomy and flexibility in our schools. Conversion charters do give us some of that. We do, with our charter rewrite, we will have a lot of information in the charter that will allow us a little more flexibility, or going into the charter will allow us some more flexibility as we continue to build and rewrite this charter, and as it's gone from the year 2000 to the current year. So we'll be looking for feedback on a lot of things that can help build Shanley Charter, high school charter. So consider conversion charter. We discussed about 3 years ago at Ashford Park, actually, with Shanley Middle School. We entertained the idea of becoming a charter middle school. That did not gain traction at the time. They are interested now. 3 years ago, Ms. Fallon was interested in becoming a STEM charter school. Again, traction needed to be there. And you have a wealth of parents that are currently at the high school that are familiar with conversion charter, and you could look up to and even consult with and us get this vertical alignment going so that we have a little more autonomy and flexibility within our district, that if Montgomery, Huntley Hills, Ashford Park, Shanley Middle, and Shanley High School become STEM certified schools or STEM charter schools, we've got a great opportunity to be a nice little cluster of STEM certified schools. So I think it's a step in the right direction for the school. It will bring in a lot more opportunity. If you don't know it, Shanley Middle School was given a $250,000 grant by the state, and they now have a STEM lab. So it's been in existence for 3 years, and they began with the 8th graders. Vex Robotics are over there, and they've got the opportunity to bring the 6th and 7th grade students in there also. I would love to see the high school students who have been through that STEM lab go back and mentor the middle school students, thereby giving the teachers a little bit less work to do, but also keeping that interest and the use of that lab going. So if you don't know that, if you ever have the opportunity to go out to Shanley Middle School, and, you know, get their news. They'll have information out there on coming to see that lab. And you can also set up a tour to see what that's all about. So we have great opportunities in the community. Now Chamblee has, with the STEAM program, also an opportunity to work alongside Cross Keys. Cross Keys has some great tech labs. They've got the manufacturing engineering going on over there. We can, hopefully with this new charter and the STEAM process, we can have students go over and use the manufacturing engineering that they have going on at Cross Keys. Also, if we're looking at a health IT component, which we are at Chamblee High School, it's a little premature right now, but health information technology is actually huge in the state of Georgia, and so we're also looking at Chamblee High School piloting that program, and we could also team with Cross Keys and their tech wing that they have over there in health. So I encourage you to take a look at the frequently asked questions, and again, we'll be happy to email it. The rigor that we have at Chamblee High School is very high rigor. My children are in the magnet program, and we have resident program students that also are able to have magnet classes. So it's fantastic for these students to be able to come together and take AP classes, college level courses at the high school. We have very good figures, that, you know, students that are performing very highly in the AP classes. And the STEM or the STEAM program that we want to bring into it is only going to complement that much more. But it'll be a great focus for the community. So if you have any questions in regards to that, I would like to introduce Nancy Kelly. She is one of the brain children behind the STEAM program. Yes, you are, Nancy. She has done a tremendous amount of work on this program, along with Ms. Peterson, who is a teacher over at Ashford Charter High School, who I wish could have been here tonight, but could not. And again, it's a community of a handful of people that are making a difference, and you all have that opportunity, so I again encourage you to do so. Nancy, is there anything in particular that you would like to add that I think you covered it, and we'll just answer any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much, brother. And then our last speaker is going to be a father from Dunwoody. Gilhern has 2 children currently at Kingsley Charter School, which is a conversion elementary school right up the road. And I asked Gil to come here and basically give us a perspective from a parent that has a child in a charter elementary school in DeKalb.
Thank you, Sean, and I have to start by commending Sean for leading this effort. This is an amazing undertaking at the grassroots level. And he's assembled, not including myself, but an impressive array of folks with all kinds of knowledge. And the advantage of going last is that I've gotten to hear what all these fine folks have said, and so much of it, almost all of it, has resonated with me. These folks are right on target in the things that they're telling you. Just a little bit about me. I've been in the DeKalb County school system for 4 years as a parent. I have 4 children, all in single-digit ages, no multiples. So just by pure volume, I've been committed to public education.
We'll get along good.
Exactly. So the first 2 years were at Chestnut Charter Elementary, also in Dunwoody, as part of our emotional redistricting that all of us experienced a few years ago. We got shifted just to the other elementary school, which also happened to be a charter school. Both of Kingsley and Chestnut are charter conversion schools. And then the charter theme in my life continues. I'm actually having 2 children who will be attending the Globe Academy in the fall, which is a full-blown, I'll call it, charter school. So you've heard a lot of subtle differences in terminology tonight, and some of you are just hearing this for the first time. and there are nuances in this terminology, but they make huge differences in the reality of what you would experience. A conversion charter school, in my experience, is a world away from a full-blown charter school. That's just something to keep in mind, that when you hear people talking about charter school, you want to understand what type of charter school they're talking about and what perspective that they have with where are they coming from and what experience have they had with a charter school. Nancy started out by saying you need to essentially stay engaged, know what's going on at the county level. It is so easy for parents at great schools like Ashford Park to get complacent and say what's going on elsewhere doesn't impact me. I experienced this with parents in Dunwoody. They're the worst at being complacent, and then things go wrong, and then they go wrong and wrong and wrong, and it eventually impacts you. So stay engaged. It does matter what happens in Stone Mountain Industrial Boulevard. Just a quick note, Parents for DeKalb Schools is a grassroots organization I've been known to speak on behalf of. There's a Facebook page that you should follow. There are all kinds of other resources out there to stay engaged at the county level. So please do that. Choice is a good thing, but choice has consequences. Choice, in my personal example of the Globe Academy, it's a choice that became available to me, and I said the same thing as Sean did, because I've got these 4 kids and it puts me in 10-year blocks at schools. I said, I'm going to be at Kingsley for 10 years. Well, now, you know what? I'm going to be there 1 more year. Choice has changed a neighborhood school, and it has removed 3 children from it and has removed 2 active parents. So that's a consequence, and local schools suffer when these choices happen. And I recognize it, but yet I'm making a choice that impacts my local school. So I say that because it's extremely important for you in this room who are at Ashford Park to make sure that your school is the best that it can be and that it's differentiated. Public schools are used to operating like they're the only game in town, like they're a monopoly. To some extent, that's kind of true. It was more true several years ago, 10 years ago, 40 years ago, but now there's not only public and private school choices, there's homeschooling. There's an online charter school that you can attend because you live in Georgia. Your children can stay at home, take online classes for free, and never enter the doors of a school building. There are these full-blown charter schools, people can move. There's so many choices that unless you make the school the best that you can be, the folks with the babies in this room are going to move out of the neighborhood or have other choices and won't end up at your local school. 1 parent or 2 parents at a school can make the largest difference in what that school is and can be. So as you're thinking about what type of charter school you can be, think big, have vision. We've talked about STEAM or STEM as things to focus on, but what is going to be your differentiator? I know that you're piloting or a dual immersion. That could be something that's involved in charter. But something that makes your school different. It can be multiple things that your charter can focus on. So I've had good experiences at Chestnut and Kingsley, but I just wanted to make sure that you understood I was speaking from honestly and realistically about my experiences. A conversion charter school, well, Kingsley, for example, became a conversion charter school 15 years ago. It was the school to go to visit, to see what the new things they were doing, to experience innovation in education. And I imagine that 15, 16 years ago, the same thing that's happening in this room happened in Dunwoody when parents believed that Kingsley Elementary could be much more than it was, and that it also needed to respond to things that were changing in the community. So the conversion charter option was a it had to have been a revolution at that point. It made a huge difference in the ability of parents to get into a school and make a difference. I believe that over time in DeKalb County that the conversion charter schools have experienced somewhat of a watering down of the impact that the parents of those schools feel like they can make. We've talked about how the state or the waivers that are in the charters allow for certain things, but the realities of that don't always allow them to happen. For example, in a conversion charter school, at least the two I've been involved with, you don't have control over hiring and firing of staff. Your funding is no different. It's all based on the same formula as the non-charter schools. You may have flexibility to change your curriculum as far as textbooks, but you have to buy those textbooks. You may have flexibility to change your start times or your end times, but you don't have flexibility to change the bus schedule. So there are all of these outside influences that at face value it may look great, but you've got to understand the big picture and exactly if these ideals can be implemented given the constraints of a school system that serves 100,000 children. Some of the thing at Kingsley, there is no PTA, but there is a charter council only. It's got 5 parents on it, and it has the rest, I think 7 or so positions on charter council are administration or teachers. At Chestnut, they have both a charter council, a similar structure, and a PTA, which is full-blown, probably similar to the one that you have at Ashford Park. So there's so many different flavors of what can come out of the charter. It all depends on what is written there. At both schools, we had dress codes for the children. Most people found that favorable in creating a better school environment. Both schools have what they call action teams that focus on different areas, whether it's facilities, technology, curriculum, assessment and dealing with assessing the school's progress against the charter. So these action teams that are almost like committees made up of parents and sometimes a combination of parents and staff and teachers that work to live out the charter's goals. There is additional autonomy, there is additional flexibility in what I've experienced, but it takes the parents being involved, sometimes tying all of their actions back to the charter and saying, yes, we've got the ability to make this decision or do this because the charter says so. The charters, if you wonder what a charter is, you can find these online. It'd be great for you to find a charter for some late night reading, but they're about 100 pages long, and then there are the appendices, which can be up to 700 more pages. But the meat of it's going to be somewhere in about 20 or 30 pages that you'll find in the middle of it. But it spells out everything, and every one you read is going to be slightly different. And then somewhere you're going to find waivers. These waivers will be county exemptions and they'll be state exemptions. Some of the full-blown charter schools pretty much say we're exempt from everything because we're a charter school. But when you come to Kingsley as a conversion charter school, you've got 2-3 pages of exemptions. They range from saying we can take a field trip in September and May, when evidently the school district doesn't allow that, who knows why. We can select our textbooks. Kingsley's charter focuses on brain-based learning and education, which was some education philosophy that came out around the time our charter was made. It impacts how much time children can move around in addition to recess. It impacts the structure, seating arrangement in the classroom, low-level lighting, incandescent over fluorescent. So then there's some state exemptions saying our teachers can teach outside of their certification. So you're like, wow, we're getting into something here that might mean something with curriculum. So I'm just telling you this is an example. You know, charter means a zillion different things. You have to know what you're getting into and read the fine print. So that's my spiel, but thank you for allowing me to share my experiences tonight.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up now for Q&A. Kristen raised his hand very fast.
I'm curious, since you're undergoing a charter rewrite right now at the high school, it sounds like you've got a lot of flexibility in doing that. Under the hybrid version, the public partnership, is it the same? Do you have to go through more of a process, a bureaucratic process, if you wanted to rewrite the charter and make amendments and modernize it as the times change? And also, is the longevity of that relationship the same as you'd have as a charter?
This is the public-private partnership contract. It is a charter contract. We don't call it a charter. It goes all the way. It says that if they sign the contract, the new nonprofit has complete and total autonomy on all issues. It's a 15-year term, not a 5-year term, and they have to turn over the facility. So my argument would be to what folks here have said, if you really want to do this, whether you call it a charter, a conversion, a hybrid, there's only one reason to do it, and that is because you want complete and total control over the school. And that brings with it the responsibility.
I'd just like to add something, it's not, the parents working on the conversion charters do a lot of great work, but I'm going to give you, this is my blunt assessment of how conversion charter is viewed in the school system. It's viewed as not a charter, okay? An independent charter is one thing and a conversion charter is another. They really dig in, dig in their heels. They didn't like to be forced. The administration and boards didn't like to be forced to have independent charter schools, hence, we had the amendment and all the politics of that. The conversion charters just do not give you the autonomy. You do not get to control your money. You do not get to control your staff. And if you don't get to control those two things, the rest is some great work. I mean, they're doing great things at Shamway and Kingsley, but they don't have the control that you would really want. And Glenn's plan does give that.
To add just to that, I do believe here in DeKalb, we are at a very unique moment in time. Right now, my association is working with the Druid Hills cluster, and what I believe is 9 schools, 1 high school, 2 middle schools, and I believe it's 6 elementary schools. And with this effort, with 9 schools, we are putting everything on the table with regards to flexibility and autonomy, with the expectation that DeKalb County Schools has proven quite clearly over the last few years that schools, communities that have the ability through strong governance, good leaders, can do excellent work. And I do believe that the path that the Druid Hills cluster is paving opens up opportunities for schools like Ashford Park to be able to say, if it is an interest, we are interested in becoming a charter, but we are interested in becoming a charter with true autonomy, true flexibility, that we want and expect the ability through self-governance to make hiring and firing decisions at school level, to handle all of our budget. As one individual with the Druid Hills cluster had said, when I asked him, what does autonomy mean for you? His answer, and I found this quite refreshing, to him, autonomy means the DeKalb Board of Education sets the millage rate, and that they will take it from there in handling the decisions which are best for that school cluster. And I think that is a route that is on the table currently. And the more schools that are going down that path, the more leverage parents and communities are going to have in saying, we are a DeKalb County school, but we feel confident in our ability to handle decisions at the community level.
I want to just point out in the boilerplate for the new charter petition, it just says DeKalb is not inclined to accept a blanket waiver. So, you know, they're coming out and telling you they're not really so.
State law does say differently.
Yeah.
And I agree. DeKalb County schools, like Clinton County schools, have said over time, we will not accept a blanket waiver. We want you to put down individual waivers. The way it should be done is the charter should be allowed to have a blanket waiver, and then the district can expect, please tell us how you plan on using. And that is one of the areas that we are pushing the envelope very hard with the new school board.
And there's something I was going to add. I think Rich always says, with authority concedes nothing without a demand.
Power concedes.
Power concedes. So you're on the leading edge here, okay? And you have to make your demand about what you want. And I just want to tie that into paying attention and legislation. I don't know if Mike Jacobs is still here, but this past legislative session, the parent trigger bill came up. And united with charter schools and parent trigger, you would have, but it failed. It did not, it got through the House and didn't get through the Senate. Had that been on the table here, that was a mechanism. It ended up getting watered down even before it failed in the Senate, but had it been a strong bill, it would allow parents and teachers, I believe it started as the Parent and Teacher Empowerment Act, yeah, and so it also allowed teachers as well. You could trigger your school to become an independent charter. Now, that legislation failed. It did not get through the Senate. So I would imagine, I hope, I will certainly be asking that it come up again next legislative session. But it's hanging over school districts. And they know they also, that this amendment just passed. So you're, in a way, if you go the independent route, you're asking for parent trigger, even though that law didn't pass, but hopefully one day it will. So there's that kind of leverage too. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I was kind of not going to go there, but seeing how Nancy opened the door,
I go there.
I'm going to step right in. There's a unique opportunity here, and she pointed out some very pivotal legislation that almost got passed. I take the position as a parent that I don't ask permission to provide the best for my kids. I just do it. So I want to just encourage you, and I know it's a bold step, but don't put yourself in a position where you're asking permission from the school board to do what's best for your kids. Take a bold leadership step and tell them, here's what I want, and there are repercussions if I don't get that. You have a bigger bargaining chip than you think. And we discount our efforts, we discount our authority and our power as parents by always having to go to someone and ask them, oh, can I? Mother, may I? No. If we don't get them to give it to us directly, then we have the option of leveraging whatever political contacts, friends and neighbors we have across the state to make sure we have legislation passed in next session. Well, they won't have any other options but to grant us the choice that we're asking for. So use the time now to be able to structure a deal, whether it be a direct public-private partnership or whether it be a conversion where they literally do give you the autonomy. But let them know that one way or the other, either they will do it because it's the right thing to do, or they will do it because they have no other option, because it's the law. And that's the position of strength I like to see us as parents take as we go forward this process.
Thompson?
So as a city legislator, one of the things that has always felt in the back of my mind is millage rates, sexy as it is. And so what I'm curious about, I've never taken the time to think about the DeKalb County School situation, but in the event that you have an autonomous charter school, how does one go about understanding what the concept of a lower tax rate might be? Like, does the independent charter submit its proposed budget, and what weight does that have versus the fully funded schools that might be spending more recklessly than our school? And so can you walk through maybe a little bit of the budgeting process as it includes both the standard public school as well as the independent cluster?
Well, let me first tell you on the cluster.
I'm sorry, independent charter?
Well, if you had a Chandler cluster like Beverly suggested.
I would just, if you don't mind, you can address the question of the tax rates, not the cluster issue.
Well, this is to the tax issue.
Okay, thank you.
You have roughly 2,400 students in the cluster, and according to the state, DeKalb is spending $15 million at those 5 schools, which is $6,600 per student. But remember, total spending is $9,300. So if you had the autonomy and control of the budget that we're all arguing for, in those 5 schools, the difference is $10 million. All right? And the point is that, Nancy said, it's not just DeKalb. I happen to live in the city of Atlanta, which is worse. They only spend 55 cents out of every dollar that gets to the classroom. That's one reason why to do the charter way. It's to get more money in the hands of the school leaders and the teachers. The budgeting for a district authorized charter, it's called the SWAG method. I actually took the deposition once of the chief financial officer for the Atlanta Public Schools, and I asked him how he calculated how much the charters got, and he did this. Because basically what they do is they figure out how much money's left over, and then they tell you what they're going to give you. That's why we had to have the amendment, as Ben said, because now you go authorized. Under the amendment, though, the problem is if you go just a commission authorized charter, you're only going to get $6,800. That's not enough to operate on.
As far as military, so the DeKalb school system sets a millage rate, and you're at one of the highest in the state right now. There's, I think, 2 higher. So 23.98 mils. We have a cap of 25, unlike, say, most of the other areas, like Gwinnett has a cap at 20. Okay, so cap at 25. What the school board administration will argue is that for every independent charter school, oh my gosh, that's an expense for us, and oh, we just have to raise taxes, although they have, precious little that they can go to get to the cap, because they book it as an expense on the budget, okay? But they don't characterize it as, well, you've moved costs out as well, you see. So you've moved liabilities away, so the money should sort of follow the child, but that's not the math logic that they use. So the charter that you end up agreeing to with the district would delineate your funding, and they would delineate your size. I'm right about that. How many kids you could accept and what the growth rate of your would be. So it would be all laid out in a charter. So you would know if you made a charter agreement with DeKalb, how many kids you could accept and what you would get for that. And you could also negotiate a building, like Globe has done and so on. So but what happens is it doesn't, there has been a fair amount of discrepancy on that as well when they would negotiate these. You had, DeKalb has an issue. If there's a good thing and they can mess it up, they'll do it. And so there are some charter schools that would get amazing amounts of funding, and some charter schools that would get very small amounts. And I couldn't find a really good rhyme or reason for that. And it's just not, I don't like the accounting methodology for it as well on the system because they view it as an expense. Which is really sort of, I think it's kind of duplicitous, and they'll talk about it that way. Oh, they'll wring their hands. We have to pay out all this money to these charter schools, and that's leaving. But they, they don't talk about that. But then now that's not an expense that you're incurring on this side of the book. So they don't really, it's called a balance sheet, but they don't care about that. So anyway, does that answer your question a little bit? So,
is this statement true then, according to what you're talking about? That they figure out the cost to administer the education system-wide and then add an expense to the budget to cover the cost of the charter schools?
Well,
so are we essentially being double taxed?
You're not being taxed.
Everybody seems to be.
Right, you've got 23.9 acres, that's your school tax. So if you own property, that's what you're going to, if they maintain the military.
Not double charged, not double taxed.
Okay, well, so there's, they have to then block grant that money over to independent schools, so they take it out of their budget. But what they never do is really subsequently decrease their expenses as a whole when you don't have these costs, okay? I mean, look at the general administration salaries. 14.4% growth over 6 years as teachers and your classroom environment have been pilfered from, okay? And so those have declined 25% over the 6 years. I mean, the numbers are just the numbers, okay? And we have, you'll just see rampant overspending. In the year this is one of my favorite statistics, the year that Sachs first gave DeKalb County district-wide accreditation, DeKalb overspent its budget by $23 million. So, and yet was given district accreditation and hailed as having a charismatic leader at the time, who's of course subsequently been indicted. So, I do think that the way they account for the money is not as transparent and honest about it as possible. And that's why when I said you have a jobs program and a construction firm, it's a jobs program. And they really do see it as oh my gosh, this is an expense. I've got to give that money to that evil charter school over there. And, rather than partnering and seeing how they can lower costs, lower their, what they consider their fixed costs, and they're not, they've been fighting it. They fought the amendment, they're still fighting it, they're still fighting funding. So that's the way I see it. And Andrew probably has some more points to that.
In attempting just to look at the difference between an independent charter and a conversion charter, for an independent charter, because it is a brand new school, because they do have that autonomy. One, the funding is supposed to work where they receive a federal and state portion that everyone understands and is very easy. And then there is the local portion. And for an independent charter that is approved by a local district, the money is supposed to follow the child to their public school of choice. What we find is that the district is being what I would call the middleman. District by district, you will see variations on how much or how appropriate they are providing the funding for that independent charter. At a conversion charter, and please tell me if you feel differently, it is far more consistent because the school was already a traditional public school within the district, already has a student base within their attendance zone, so the fluctuations for the student funding are not nearly as extreme. In the prior question, talking about the level of autonomy, I do foresee those schools, conversion charter schools, that are receiving far more autonomy and having far more control over their budgets, things like transportation are going to be very interesting questions for the Druid Hills cluster. They certainly have a desire to say to DeKalb County Schools, we want the transportation dollars, and we may contract back out with DeKalb County Schools to handle transportation. Or we may look at another vendor, but we want to be able to explore hours in the day. We may not want the very defined DeKalb County school schedule. We may want an additional half hour added on at the end of the school day. For DeKalb, they see that as, well, this is going to change everything with our bus schedules. We can't do that. And my belief is that is the value of the charter in being able to find what is going to fit best with the individual community. So as you explore, there are, between an independent charter and a conversion, there are going to be some different variables in the funding. That kind of get to the answer?
And one of the big differences between a conversion and an independent charter, from looking down at the district level, is that the district is in a conversion charter is still supplying all your related professionals. So your school psychologist, your SLP, your speech language pathologist, and folks like that, that the majority of parents don't really ever interact with, don't have a lot of, because your kids is learning normal. And they're special ed related often. The OT, the occupational therapists, the physical therapists, and some of those at the elementary level. Well, they're across all of them, but particularly talking about the elementary level, sometimes read professionals come from the district as well. The money for those in an independent charter come unless the district and DeKalb County and charter school, museum school, they have to hire all those people the first year they go. That's part of your staff budget that you have to account for. As a first charter school level, in the district level, we're still supplying. That is two things. On the budget side, it's great because the money really kind of comes from the district. On the control side, maybe not. Maybe you don't like the school psychologists that they assign you because they don't believe in your curriculum model or your problem-solving method that you're using in your student support team, which is what you do to support students who are learning well before they get to the special ed part. So that's a whole other element of the budgeting process at a charter school that you have to think about. And it can affect how much it really looks like it's going down. There's a part of all of that money to get everything in the school that goes for all those related service professionals that you are obligated by federal law to provide. Period. In the story. And then state law with the state support team, that pre-referral process is part of federal law, it's also part of state law. So it's really complicated. I think there are 4 graduate classes in school finance. And I have to update it constantly in order to keep up with the changes with charter students.
Can charter enter into intergovernmental service agreements?
I'm sorry?
Can charter schools enter into intergovernmental service agreements to share those costs?
And when you say intergovernmental, I am thinking district to district.
Yeah, or charter school, right?
Yes.
So if you're independent charter and you feel like there's overwhelming burden of having to have a school psychologist, you can actually share a school psychologist with 4 other independent charters.
And we have many examples of just that.
Awesome.
And I was going to say about the financing for students at schools too. You know, I think it's like a black box in DeKalb too, because what happens is you get, you know, FTE counts, you count up all the, you know, it's 19 different categories a student can fit into in over 6 segments of a day. This all gets counted and then it goes into this formula, and then the central office in DeKalb then spits back out to schools okay, well, this is how many teachers you get, this is how many parapros you get, this is what, and so they don't get a budget, they don't get, this is how much you're getting to spend, like a charter would have associated with it, per pupil, you know, based on the enrollment. It's this sort of mystery, and it's because we have this very complicated funding formula too, that makes it very difficult. I would love to see that be simplified. That would be another legislative issue.
So, yeah, the Parent Trigger Act didn't happen, right?
Did not happen.
At this point, if we were to start the charter process, maybe take a year or two to get open or whatever, an independent charter like Bow Academy, we have to get, that doesn't seem very likely, but we have to get approval from the Board of Education.
So you would go first before DeKalb, just like Globe did. If DeKalb turns you down, the amendment that passed now lets you go to the state commission, and they could authorize you if for whatever reason the county turns you down.
So Ashford Park could, that is possible,
no, because, if that's an independent, a conversion charter, I don't believe has any right to do that. So if they turn down your conversion charter, however you tried to negotiate it, whether it was very autonomously like an independent charter school or less autonomous like most of the other conversion schools we have, then you have no appeal right, only an independent application. So if you all got together and formed your own group and said, you know, we're the XYZ charter school, and you make an application, they turn you down as an independent, then you can go to the state. So what the parent trigger law, why it's so important, why it's still important, why we still need it, is it allows you at Ashford Park Elementary School to vote on turning it into an independent charter.
But it did pass. It did pass next November or whatever, I'm not sure how that works.
Next January.
At this point, is a conversion charter the most likely route for us? Or is an independent charter also a possibility? It's not even a possibility.
Can I answer this way? I mean, you've had a lot of different terms thrown out to you. You got conversion charter, independent charter, we got all these virtual charters. I'm going to throw another one out to you. The most viable option for you, as I see it, and I'm not an expert, I just kind of like been doing this for a while. It's a hybrid conversion, all right? Because a conversion, as it is defined by Georgia law and as it is recognized by DeKalb, doesn't do you a whole lot of good. Because everything we've said tonight is that you will have charter on the name, but you will not have charter in spirit. Because the spirit of an independent charter school is that you're making decisions, you're hiring and firing teachers, you're doing curriculum, you're doing those kinds of things. But here's the deal. In an independent charter, they go and they get a building. You're already in a building. I would be willing to bet my last dollar, my last breath on earth, that the district is not going to turn around and just hand you a building that you're currently in and say, okay, run it. So you want to go with a conversion hybrid model.
So you got to make a demand.
Right, well you got to make a demand. You want to go with a conversion hybrid model that says, okay, we'll do this conversion thing, but we want a lot different rules of engagement than, say, some other conversions. And that's when you make the demand for having more governance and having more control. And did you ask about the money? The money's going to be the same. Either way, what you want to make sure is that you have control of how the money's being spent. That's the big issue. It's not like counting how many heads and trying to figure out this formula, because the formula is designed to be confusing.
I don't think we have a money problem, we have a control problem.
Yeah.
And from what Rich just said, I wouldn't describe it as a charter hybrid. I would just call it an actual charter. A charter school that has the autonomy that is promised, the flexibility that they should have under law, that DeKalb and other districts have not been affording conversions. So I don't look at it as a hybrid, I just look at it as an actual charter. There are conversion charters throughout the United States that are true charter schools. But we're not seeing it currently here in Georgia. But I don't believe anyone has really pushed the envelope until now.
But did you just say we won't get approval for charter most likely? So, or we
Through the district.
Right.
That the district, in my mind right now in DeKalb, the moment in time, because of all the issues here in DeKalb, and with other parts of DeKalb County exploring individual conversions as well as charter clusters. There is more leverage through parents, and parents being active, not only with the charter, but being active with their legislative leaders, active at the school board level, and saying, we are pursuing this, but we want to be a true charter with autonomy and flexibility, and I expect that you're going to back our efforts.
Let me just say that I don't.
I mean, I know you can't appeal to districts, but can you continue to apply?
Yes.
If you
You
tell me
can,
no and you're not getting what you want.
But the bottom line is, whether you call it a conversion charter, an independent charter, or the hybrid, the simple fact is that you people in this room have got to get your entire parent body to become politically active and to make it absolutely uncomfortable for the DeKalb County School Board to turn you down. That is the only thing that is going to work. And if they turn you down, then you need to turn out next January at the General Assembly and make sure that the parent trigger bill does pass. And it can happen because the parent trigger bill started in Los Angeles, California 3 years ago in one of the poorest school districts anywhere in the country. There was a group of parents who got together. If you can believe this, in a union-dominated state, they got a parent trigger bill passed, and just a month ago, the Los Angeles School District agreed to a competitive bid process in which they had to bid to perform, to operate the school. They had to bid to the parents. The parents were now in control. And that's happened in just 2 years. You need to do the same thing, because if you don't, they're not going to give up control over the money.
And I want to add, Glenn is like 1,000% right. And when I was down at the Capitol, Rich was down at the Capitol during parent trigger discussions, and I told a friend of mine the other day, everybody, the Georgia Superintendents Association shows up, the Georgia School Boards Association shows up, the PTA, you would think they'd be on your side, right? Because it's right there in the name, but no, okay. They come down and they lobby against your interests, and they never talk about what is good for kids and taxpayers, okay? Never. They never let that come out of their mouth. It's only about allocation formulas and what's difficult for bureaucracies and yada, 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 just nothing. And we will get true reform where you have the power when they are more, those folks in the legislature are more fearful of you, your vote, your presence, your lobby down at the Capitol than they are of theirs. Because right now, they believe that the superintendents and the school boards association, all these associations, what they speak for their lobbyists, that's the direction many of them go in. Not a Mike Jacobs. Okay, not many of our legislatures, but enough to kill the parent trigger bill this year. So when that changes, now we have the victory with the amendment. Now we need the victory with the parent trigger bill. So we have to have a presence down at the Capitol.
Questions?
How do we become, I mean, I don't know squat about politics, but I know that my kids mean the world to me, and I'm in Ashford Park, and this is my area. So can you lead us in how I become politically active and how I make their life hell?
Because you're the leader of the pack.
Sean has my
One of
number.
your biggest challenges is going to be educating the community.
Yeah.
It's having meetings like this, it's having meetings at your school, at the middle school, at the high, I mean, anywhere you can hold these meetings to get the parents educated. And then to really survey the parents and discuss, laying out your pros and cons of each one of them and what you really want to be. And Ashford Park has to ask themselves, what do we want for our school? And you need to outline that well and have that be part of your discussions
And
too.
Beverly is exactly right. If you like the status quo, if you like the way things are right now, then you shouldn't get involved in this. It's only if you want a fairly dramatic change. And believe me, it is a dramatic change, but it can happen because everywhere else in the country where parents have been given choices like this, the results have been phenomenal. For instance, in Washington, D.C., 10 years ago, they passed the equivalent of our charter amendment. And today, 43% of the kids in Washington, D.C. attend charter schools. Within 5 years, they expect it to be 70%. And that didn't happen, you know, easily overnight. It happened because the parents finally got fed up and said, we've had enough and we're going to take back control. And if you're not willing to do that, then don't get involved. It's only if you are prepared to go to the mat with them that you should get involved, because otherwise they'll outweight you. They'll use your tax dollars to hire lobbyists to go down there on behalf of the School Boards Association, the Superintendents Association, and the unions to lobby against the very thing we're talking about now.
And I send emails out about legislative issues that come up and ask people to, you know, email their legislators or come down. And so if you're on, I know several of you are on my list, but if you're not, you can get on it. I try to keep people informed.
You mentioned earlier that you do a blog that informs all of this. Can you publish,
Okay, so my website is easy. It's nancyjester.com. Easy to remember. And then one of the tabs is my blog, and the tab is called What's Up With That. And so click on that, and then I have a blog, and you can leave comments on it. It's interactive. I've talked about a lot of the topics we talked about here today. I put a lot of research on it, particularly as it relates to DeKalb as far as the financials go. You can sign up to get feeds from my blog, so anytime I put a new one out. And at the very top of my website on Nancy Jester, you can get my email. You just put your email in and you'll go automatically on my email list. And you and several thousand of my favorite people will get my email. And I alert you when I've written a new blog. Or if there's an issue I think, hey, you need to pay attention to, this is happening, I put it on there.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Jennifer, and I live on Harvard Drive. I'm in Ashford Park. From a slightly different perspective, I have a 4-year-old, so she'll be going to Ashford Park Elementary in the next couple of years. I appreciate all the information that we've heard today. I'm trying to absorb it and distill it down, and really trying to figure out what this means for me and my family, and obviously what this means for my daughter who's going to be going to Ashford Park. There's a lot of nuts and bolts questions that we have, or I think I have, I'm sure people have them as well, as far as, you know, the admission. Like if you're already in the Ashford Park School District, are you going to be guaranteed that you are going to be, you know, admitted into this potential charter school? I mean, I don't want to have to enter my child into a lottery, and then that, and then if she doesn't get into the school, where else is she going to go? I think that's, you know, number one. Is, I mean, and I know that these are nuts and bolts and a little bit down into the weeds, but
on that issue, you write the charter or the contract so that the attendance zone state, you can guarantee that if you're in the attendance zone right now, your kids get the place. It's only if you want to fill the school from outside the attendance zone that you do it by a lottery. But you're not going to, and there are no admissions tests, and there are no tuition, there's no charges, nothing. So
Chamblee Charter, for example, it's kind of unique. We have magnet population that comes from the county, and then you have your charter school. The residents, students, the children that live in our community that go to these sister schools, they are automatically in Chamblee High School, not necessarily through charter, but because of the zoning. And then you can apply, if you're not in the zone, through the charter to get into Chamblee High School. And there's only so many seats allocated via the charter for outside attendance.
And another thing, you know, obviously as many parents have been paying attention to is the improvement, I would say, in Ashford Park Elementary within the test scores, and just, you know, it's moving in a great direction. And so this is a dramatic change, and I'm not sold yet, you know, that we need that big of a dramatic change here. So, I mean, there's obviously several pros and several cons.
With my experience at Ashford Park and seeing it grow from when my children were there to now, it has grown in leaps and bounds. And it's been because of the community effort. We've always had fabulous teachers at Ashford Park. And word of mouth getting the community involved, PTSA or PTA at elementary level has made a huge difference in the cooperation of administration. And yes, you have a fabulous thing going on in Ashford Park. I'm still involved as much as I can be, and I've got a preschool where the children go to Ashford Park or Montgomery or some of these other schools. But so I have an interest for the babies that I work with, to make sure that our schools are doing things and to know what you all are doing and support it as much as possible. But when you look at the school, I think really what y'all need to think about is the flexibility and autonomy, and whether or not the conversion charter and what kind of charter you would write and waivers you would put into your charter and how it's exercised is going to make the difference of whether or not you would go conversion charter versus now if the population in Ashford Park were small and you didn't have this community involvement that you do, you don't have the fabulous parents that put so much work behind the teachers and the administration, I would say don't do it.
let me just give you a personal story. I got started in this 20-some years ago when my oldest daughter was preparing to go to school, and we looked around and we interviewed the principal at Sarah Smith Elementary. At that time, Sarah Smith had 350 or 400 students. It wasn't the neighborhood school of choice. And I asked the principal, he's now passed away, Charlie Pepe, I said, how do you have a school? You have the best reading and best math scores. And he said, the folks from downtown, they come out here and they send me all these directives, and I throw it in the file 13, I throw it in the trash can, and I ignore them, and I hire who I want, and I fire who I want. And 20-some years later, now Sarah Smith has 1,000 students. They have a waiting list. All the Buckhead schools are the same way. But the problem is, if you don't take control of the schools now, you'll have happen to you exactly what happened to the parents in Buckhead. Some of you may have read about when the superintendent came in and fired the principal at North Atlanta.
Yeah.
I actually represented him. Mark Migrant is personally responsible for the growth of the public school system in Buckhead, because he was at Sutton, where everybody bailed out beforehand. He put in the IB program, and then he went to North Fulton or North Atlanta. He did the same thing. Well, the superintendent, for reasons that have yet to be disclosed, unilaterally takes him out, fires him. There was a meeting in the North Atlanta gym with 1,500 people there, demanding that he get reinstated, and they wouldn't listen to him. So my only point is, it may be fine right now, but by the time they get to middle school, or by the time they get to Chandler, you're still at the mercy of downtown. And if you're okay with that, then you shouldn't do anything.
On those two questions, first on the attendance zone, for a conversion charter school, the attendance zone is not going to fluctuate. So that would not change.
What did they have with Chestnut and Kingsville? You have the law. No, they do district.
I was redistricted. The districts of 2 conversion charter schools were changed, so
that was
the district is a challenge.
You can treat it as any other public school as far as your district. It can be redistricted, but you have a district.
Agreed.
But there was the potential for him to not have any charter option if the county had chosen to draw lines.
So if they had redrawn the lines and put him in Vanderland versus that's within their purview to do.
Right, because they were both conversion charters, correct?
Right, which means they treat them just like they're a public school, regular school.
Right.
For an independent charter, unless it is written in the charter that there is preference for teachers, administrators, board members, there is not a guarantee, because the attendance zone can be the entire district. So for Globe Academy, they had 250 slots, but they have 600 applicants. And that's, so for an independent charter, it falls to a lottery process. If there are more applicants than there are spaces available. To your other question, I would ask, I would almost give it back to you in a question of, do you think as a community that y'all are capable of taking a wonderful school and doing better if y'all had the ability to control many of the things that are outside of your control currently?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the questions I have though deals specifically with redistricting, because 2 years ago, the entire school was almost redistricted to another high school, which is doing very well, but has the stigma of being transient and lesser quality because it was for many, many years. And I fear that if we created this charter, and if we got redistricted, that we would lose our entire leadership from our charter and things would explode in our face. So is there any way that the charter can be written outside of the creation of an independent charter that you can protect your attendance zone?
Yeah, that's
what that is?
That's in the contract. And that's why we set this up as a 15-year agreement. All right, so it doesn't change. And to Beverly's point, you would want in your agreement, if you were starting with Ashford Park, you would want an agreement from the district that they're going to let you stay with the middle school and also the high school. And you'd write that into the contract.
Write that into the charter. Yeah, those are all good questions to make sure that you're covering everything you would want written in the charter. Take this kind of conversation to know.
The sky is basically the limit. You can ask for, you can demand whatever you want, but do you have the mettle to stand by and fight for it to the end? Because that's what it comes down to.
It's past 8 o'clock. I know a lot of you have kids that need to go to school and work tomorrow, so and I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. If anyone is free to stick around and chat, please do so. But I know a lot of people want to get home.
Just one more point. Moving forward, would Ashford Park want to consider assigning, maybe parents to research the different models and then come back together and discuss?
This was definitely the first. This was the first step in this discussion. I think now we need to, as a community, get together and decide, with the school leadership and the teachers, what direction we want to move in collectively, and definitely set up some committees to look into certain things. And so I'll be calling on all of you to participate in that. And if you didn't leave your email address back there, please do so we can have a distribution list, because this is a lot of work is going to go into whatever we decide to do, and it just can't be done by a few people. It needs to be a collective effort, and so I ask all of you to participate, and I'm going to ask all these individuals to participate, because it's a big process, but this is the first step, and we'll decide what the second step will be. Sure.
Is there a timeline that we need to be mindful of? I realize this is a long process and we want to take careful steps to it, but is there something we should be working on?
That is a question I actually have, and I think Andrew, you and I spoke about this. Say that if we targeted that we wanted to do something for the 2014-2015 school year, and just say it would be the hybrid conversion charter. What are the next steps? What are the timelines? Have we missed application dates? Have we missed petition dates? Do we know where we stand right now? And it's my understanding, Glenn, that in your situation, that doesn't come into play. We could sign a contract.
And I will tell you that the district, each district, imposes their own artificial deadlines on top of the state deadlines, and you have missed the deadline for 2014 for a charter in DeKalb County because of their artificially imposed deadline.
The deadline for what is called a letter of intent, simply submitting a very simple letter to DeKalb County Schools saying we are very interested in submitting an application for a charter. That is March 1. And for the state to submit the exact same letter, it is May 1.
But guess what? They have the authority to waive it.
Yes.
if they want to.
You can actually appeal that and ask them if they would give you a date. August dates, for example.
There is a potential, but we would have to, correct, okay.
The state board has really clamped down on such.
So you're looking at next
Well, we
week.
can ask.
But the power of the people.
But the district one has come and gone. So
It has been.
if I'm not mistaken, you're looking at a potentially, yes. That is
A potential 2-year timeline before we,
I wouldn't tell you to go for it if you're gonna wait 2 years. You never keep the group together. You need to go for 2014 and the hell with their deadline. I mean, they will have to concede whatever you want if you're really, taking control. So you won't get this done if you're shooting for 2015. You won't keep it together that long.
And your fallback
It's not just you guys, it's any group of parents won't be able to keep it together that long.
And your fallback position is you can always change the law coming out of the
well, thank you everyone for coming, and